she's a FOSS advocate, actually.
I know,
so,
right?
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself to each other.
So my name is Natalie Smolenski. I'm a Bitcoin entrepreneur and founder of the Texas Bitcoin Foundation. I'm also an anthropologist, and so I have the rare privilege of spanning the worlds of both academia and FOSS. My company, in the early days, built free and open source software for issuing digital records anchored to Bitcoin. So we saw Bitcoin as an independent verification infrastructure for digital claims, and foreseeing the world of surveillance that we continue to barrel into head first, we decided that identity needed to be self-sovereign, not just money. So I'm very, very happy to be here today with my friend Rockstar.
Yeah, well, I'm Rockstar Dev. I'm a FOSS contributor and advocate, cypherpunk that is contributing to projects within the Bitcoin ecosystem. And a lot of people know me from my contributions to BTC Pay Server primarily, but I've contributed to other projects. Beyond that, I advise Bitcoin companies, VC funds, and do everything I can do to help push Bitcoin forward, including through technologies like Nostr. So yeah, that's me.
What's your take on FOSS versus academia?
I don't know. I think that's an easy one, I guess. Natalie, do you agree like that academia has more credibility, or
It always depends with who.
on the audience? Yeah.
Credibility for who.
Okay.
Yeah, but like if you look at that old world of academia as source of truth, like there is definitely, and the whole academia is all about, okay, like what is the institution behind what is being said, which is where the whole system of like you want to go to Ivy League school and then you get that degree and you're special, you're so much better than everyone else. But I think that's definitely changing in the world, and a lot of chaos and conflicts that you see is because those sources of truth have been changing, and conflict is a natural outcome of all of that, is because like people no longer like have that authority to tell them like what is the truth, like what is the how you should think. And this is where I think naturally it goes towards FOSS, because unlike in academia where you need to go through some kind of admissions process and be accepted and whatnot, like with FOSS, all you need to do is open PR and contribute to free and open source software.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, academia is it's an authority structure. So authority can have some utility. It can create value in certain limited ways, but again, very limited ways. It's the university structure is in effect a feudal organizational structure. It's a medieval structure, and so there's certainly the opportunity to come to truth, to privilege a life of truth seeking. But as with all institutions, the logic of self-advancement within the institution often trumps whatever pursuit of truth a person may have had coming into the institution. And so I see FOSS as a way for academics who are in this structure to maintain a kind of outside perspective on what it is they do, and to act as a check on any potential hubris, and remind them that there's a much wider world out there.
Do you think academia has been tainted?
On my end, like, yes. But the thing is, you always have good people and bad people within those organizations, and then good people usually outnumber bad people. And I say that in a context of some kind of like, there needs to be some kind of like global moral authority or understanding of it, and like that's how I say like good and bad. But I'm more saying it in the way like for me the good people are the people that are not selfish, and that's the thing that I think with like most academia is maybe what Natalie was saying a little bit is like how much what you do is only for your own benefit. And unfortunately, once you get into those positions of power within academia, like, yeah, like you're forever professor. There is nothing that can be done. And then you combine that with the whole fiat game of getting budgets for research, and then combined with big government where you need to come to certain conclusions in order to keep getting those budgets. It's just like terrible. But yeah, maybe I'm focusing too much on like bad things.
Yeah, I mean it's always a question of incentives, right? Every institution is characterized by a set of incentives, positive and negative, that create the game conditions within that institution. And so if you're just a player in the game, you're captive to whatever the incentive structure is that you happen to find yourself amidst. And so, perhaps you could call that tainted. This is why self-sovereignty, which is just a way of talking about autonomy, whether it's moral autonomy or political autonomy or intellectual autonomy. Self-sovereignty is the point. It's the point of human maturation, of growing up, also of the pursuit of truth in an academic context or anywhere.
Do you believe Bitcoin is far from academia because of its open source nature?
Well, it really depends on which academics, because yeah, although what you're saying about the way paper was published, like I was so excited to jump into that. Like I loved it that he kind of followed the scientific academic way of doing this. Although yeah, he he didn't get much peer review and like responses as those papers usually like get through, because just getting paper published like for most papers is like what, like 6 months, a year.
At least, yeah.
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 So that's the FOSS way of doing it. It's just like publish the paper. You have 2 months, like 3 months. Let's just publish the thing and get people using it. And that's really what I love about FOSS, is that at the end of the day, something gets published that's used by there is an end user that gets to use the system, and then system works in practice. Sure, that's also where academia comes in and is very useful, where target audience of certain papers is just like more technical, like people, and can't directly get used by the public. But again, I love the FOSS nature of all of that, that you, at the end of the day, like what you're publishing is either working or it's not working. And if it's not working, there is also opportunity for anyone in the public to contribute and make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a push within the world of academic publishing as well to move toward a more FOSS style model for academic papers. So there's multiple services now like Archive or SocArchive where scholars publish preprints, meaning as their paper is winding its way through the peer review process, through the publication process, they openly share drafts in a fully open manner for anybody to read and comment on. Because in the world of academia, there are the institutional barriers to the dissemination of knowledge, the slowness of it, which is part of the structure of authority and also expertise that these institutions bring. But then there's also academic publishing. And the world of academic publishing is unfortunately controlled by a few, they're not exactly monopolies, but they're conglomerates that own large portions of the market share of academic publishing. And it's very expensive reading one article, downloading one article can cost, $29, €39. I mean, like it's very expensive. And so these are the kinds of barriers to knowledge dissemination that this industry has put up. So in addition to the preprint services, you also have, in effect, pirate websites like Sci-Hub, run out of Kazakhstan and Russia, to basically say this is morally unconscionable. Information wants to be free. We are scientists. There should not be financial barriers to accessing science.
Yeah, this whole panel is turning more into academia and FOSS.
Right.
Like it's not versus. So
Yeah.
sorry, Mars, for spoiling it for you. But what I wanted to add, like on this whole point, is like, if you look at someone like Aaron Schwartz, who is like lost his life, took his own life in the end, but lost life essentially like over this whole situation where you do have few conglomerates that are trying to control and harness that information, monetize it. Like, he tried to liberate that information, but that got severely punished. They tried to essentially make an example of him. And it's a shame it goes into that direction, but I do look forward to some kind of reform of academia in this direction, and this is that, as I was mentioning, good people in academia, they should be supported to take it in this direction, because at the end of the day, the more like academia wouldn't exist if it weren't useful. And it was for centuries of human history, like it has been the driving force, like tens of centuries, driving force behind technology improvements, connecting the people. Like that's the beautiful thing when you do go to universities, is like connections you make, and like the access to people that are experts. Now, it turned into this whole mess under monetary incentives and different constraints, but hopefully we can reform it and make it academia and FOSS.
In some countries, both Bitcoin and academia are privileges. How can they be included?
Well, this is something like where I'm really passionate about, and I kind of lived through it, considering that I'm an immigrant to U.S. And I do come from like the university I went to is not well known outside of country I come from, but I can tell you a personal story. Like I was afraid coming to U.S. because I was like, you guys pay so much money to go to university. How will I ever compete with these geniuses that spend tens of thousands of dollars yearly on tuition? And then I come there and find out like the classes they went to are like horrible. Like the knowledge they got, like they actually can't compete with me. Like it was shocking because what ended up happening, like they envy me because I don't have student debt. But there was still like a problem of access in a sense that, if you went to MIT or you went to Stanford, like what you do is promoted much more. But I think at the end of the day, it would be great if you do not need to follow like the immigrant path that I needed to follow, because it's like really hard and there are its own perils. But rather, this is where FOSS comes in. And if there is technology you're developing, maybe instead of trying to leverage academia and that network, try to leverage FOSS network, because a lot of FOSS advocates will help out. And we are already seeing, like in Africa, there are technologies being developed that you cannot develop or deploy in US right now. You will only see them in maybe few years. But if you look at, I think it's Congo with a zip line, where they launch planes with zip line, and then it like coasts to the destination, delivers blood, delivers medical supplies. It's a kind of technology you don't see in US, but rather Africa is leading the way. So to my fellow students from not privileged universities, like even in the US, like there is such a like Ivy League versus
Right.
just, do not let the fact that cards are stacked against you like discourage you. And then, instead of maybe, focusing on the injustice of of that, like focus on maybe reaching out to FOSS community or reach out to me and yeah, let's see how what you're working on can be better promoted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, whether you choose to go into academia or not, what matters is what you're trying to do, right? So there's not, one path to impacting the world, to advancing knowledge. If what you're interested in is making, a fundamental contribution to a specific discipline, a scientific discipline or field of research, then it's hard to do that as a full autodidact. I mean, the institutional schooling and education is probably going to be necessary at some point. That doesn't mean, though, that that needs to be the be-all and end-all of your trajectory. I've gone through the academic system, but quickly realized that the type of publishing I wanted to do in my field was going to be very difficult to do within an academic context. And so I've been working as an independent scholar, and I've been making a social impact as well as an entrepreneur in the FOSS world. So there are many ways to change the world. And what I would suggest is, like Rockstar was saying, money isn't always the problem. Money can solve certain problems, but at the end of the day, everybody has to struggle to get to what it is they love and to become an autonomous, powerful person. So wherever you are in the world, whatever privileges you have or don't have, those are the materials that you are starting with. And the existential question for all of us is, who will we become? And what will we do in light of the cards we've been dealt?
Yeah, focus on what you have. Do not focus as much on what you don't have. And then what you don't have, like find people who can maybe supply and complement you with that. And yeah, let's make world better.
Yeah.